I say I'm Jay, your host of Strange Unexplained. You're watching Vanishing Gates, and we're continuing to talk about the UAP conversations in Congress. That was a weird way to say that, but here we are, and here we go again.
But we must have the ability and the data to be able to be transparent with. And if we're not gathering that, if we're not looking at it, then we can't bring NASA into the game and get to that good science that you need.
You know, it was about a year ago. I was touring a facility with a pretty senior government official.
She was so
We
pretty.
went by a certain hangar, and they said, "Yeah, that's a company leases that out. We don't really know what's going on in there. We have no way of knowing what's going on in there."
That's weird.
And there's a few of those, in fact, while we were driving around this facility. To what extent do you think that some of the UAP out there comes from off the books or unauthorized experimental aircraft?
I mean, I think probably the vast majority of UAP are drones, experimental aircraft, weather conditions, which is again why I say if we review the data, I think we're going to discover a lot about things we weren't even thinking about. But there is a percentage that isn't. And looking into those anomalies is how discoveries will be made. And relative to science, Congressman, if I can say, when NASA studies black holes, when NASA studies galaxies, we have instruments that are tailored to do so. With UAP, we're using cockpit gun cameras or cell phones. We could never do good science with that. And let me tell you, the NASA budget is under pressure. We need to make sure that the Artemis program is funded fully. We need to beat China to the moon and maintain our presence in low
I thought we were already in the moon. Oh yeah, that's right. We never landed in the moon.
But I think tailored
On the moon.
instruments that would look at UAP in the same
Ever.
way that we have tailored instruments to look at astronomical data is important to gathering valuable and uniform information. If we were studying black holes by using fighter cockpit cameras, we probably wouldn't know that much about black holes.
100%. Well, I think
Fair.
it's important that federal leaders take the necessary steps to ensure that UAP does not pose threats to the American public as well, and that we have the necessary budgets to collect this data so we can actually see what's going on. And I'm fully supportive of funding the Artemis mission. I think it's very important. Also, a personal note, the pilot is a frat brother of mine. He is a member of the Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and so I would love to see
Wah,
my
wah.
fraternity make it to the moon.
But Redwire is building the cameras for Artemis, so we will take some pictures of your frat brother and get them.
There we go. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Thank you. I will now recognize Ms. Luna for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Elizondo, to your knowledge, can you name the country and around time frame that the first back engineered UAP program started?
Ma'am, unfortunately, I would not be able to have that conversation in public.
Can anyone on the panel name that? None of you? Okay. This next question is for Mr. Gallaudet. To your knowledge, have any USOs ever outpaced our submarines?
Yes, ma'am.
At what magnitude?
I don't have the exact speed, but again, a witness came to me, a credible former submarine officer who observed it on sonar data, and this was in the 80s in the North Atlantic during a storm, and it outpaced his submarine by orders of magnitude.
Are you aware of any hotspots that currently exist off our shores in North America?
Okay, look, I got to take a break here just to acknowledge something. You ever think that it's a lot of really nerdy folks into this kind of stuff, but there's also a lot of dudes in the ufology and stuff that might be single, and all of the they took all the hot gals from Congress to be on this panel. I think it's like weird. It's weird. There can't be that many attractive women in Congress. It's strange. Aliens. They're
Not with,
aliens.
Sufficiently credible data, ma'am.
Okay, we've heard reports of there potentially being hotspots, maybe entry and exit points. Have you heard of any of that?
I have not, ma'am, but my colleague here, Mr. Elizondo, does discuss some USO activity that he's observed in certain DoD databases.
Mr. Elizondo, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to...
That is a
presume
weird jump.
That they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers and in other cases they seem to, I came across an email where the word "stalked" was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
That's not
In our
good.
previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is one of this older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So are you,
Crazy.
I guess, would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And so also same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
Fair.
Do any of you ever come across reports from people that claim to have firsthand experiences with these entities, whatever they might be, or these aircraft, and then as a result, whether or not they're religious, find that these things will automatically disappear?
So in chat, Kevin says, "What I saw went across the whole visible sky, night sky in a split second." That's crazy, man. Yeah, some of this stuff, even the UFO experience that I have, the story that I've told, my one UFO sighting when I was a little kid, a UFO just being unidentified flying objects. I have no idea what the hell it was. When the 3 points of light split and they moved, it was just an instant. There's nothing that can move that fast. Not a craft that we know of, is what I mean. Even my dad, a military guy, was like, "What the hell?" He's like, "We don't have anything like that." It was such an explosive movement in every direction. There was no explosion. It was just they were going. So.
Anyone, this is open to any of you on the panel. So just real quick, because I'm running out of time. Lou?
Ma'am, I've always been a nuts and bolts kind of guy. When I was at ATIP, I was focusing more on the performance characteristics and less on the potential occupants.
Okay, the reason I ask is because it seems like, just based on our conversations, that we've had people that say that there are good and bad of whatever these things are. And so my concern from a national security perspective is A, that true? B, are you guys hearing reports of that? And C, I think moving forward in regards to technology, Mr. Gold, if you can answer this real quickly, some of these aircraft, it seems that they are operating off of energy that we don't currently have. But just yes or no, in your opinion, if we were able to obtain that, would that impact humanity for the better or negative?
It depends on.
Save us some money on funding on Artemis.
Definitely.
And this
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something. This is a catch-22. What the question she just asked: would it better humanity or would it be worse if we had the same technology? And it would be both. It would absolutely be both. Just like nuclear technology can be used for incredible good and horrendous catastrophe. We've seen it happen time and time again. We have what is possibly, if done properly, the cleanest form of energy on the planet in nuclear technology. Hands down, it is the cleanest way to produce energy. If it's done correctly, and very, very correctly. If it's done incorrectly or used in a malignant fashion or a malicious construct, much like we see in warfare, it is to great detriment to society. Yeah, sure, it'll end a war real quick, but at the same time, at what cost? And who gets their hands on that technology? It's interesting that other governments haven't jumped on the same conclusion if this is such a big deal. and that we know of anyway, and sought so hard to get this technology if it's something that's really there. I wonder if America just has the agreement. If there's aliens that made an agreement with America directly and our allies, a couple of our allies. Because if this technology fell into the hands of, say, Kim Jong-un or Xi Jinping, that would be bad. It would be catastrophic. If China had this technology, well, you saw how they mishandled the whole COOF thing. And that was, mishandled, quote unquote, if you think that was an accident anyway. Then you have, them getting a hand of this. It could be really bad. That might be why our government's so hush-hush about it. But then if you have a biological craft or a thinking being that's flying around doing this, there's not a whole lot of technology to glean from that. So what do? Now you need to know whether or not they're a threat or if they're friendly. And I think it's kind of what she's hinting at.
This is a national security issue, that if there is such technology out there, we're not the only country that might have access to it. We don't want to be on the wrong
That's my
end
question.
of technological surprise.
My question. There you
Thank
go.
you guys for your time.
All right, thank you. I will now recognize Mr. Garcia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I apologize for stepping out. My governor is here upstairs, so I'm trying to get in between meetings, so apologize for that. I wanted to start by just asking everyone on the panel or witnesses, and I had a chance to read all the testimony before, but just to set the agenda, if we can go down real briefly, do you believe, just for the record?
Okay, so hold on. He's already been talking to Gavin Newsom. This isn't going to go well. If Gavin Newsom has this technology, our homeless people will be so much more advanced tomorrow.
That the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UAPs from the public.
Yes, sir.
I guess he
100%.
missed the entire testimony.
Yes. Thank you. I also want to just go down the line. I know many of you have already said this, but just for the record again, just briefly, what do you believe UAPs could be or are?
Strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
They already said that.
I echo my colleague's comment, sir.
Genuinely do not know.
Don't know, but we must find out.
Agreed.
Thank you. I appreciate those answers, gentlemen. I think this is obviously another remarkable hearing with just really important information, so I thank all of you for answering the questions. Admiral, I just want to go back to one thing. Now, last year our subcommittee heard from 2 retired Navy pilots, Lieutenant Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor, regarding UAPs. Actually, I think Ryan is here in the audience and been a great person to get to know and to have conversations with. He, of course, has been involved in the Safe Airspace for Americans Act, with Chairman Graves, with Chairwoman Mace for UAP reporting by civilian aviation personnel. Can you discuss briefly why it's important for civilian pilots to be able to report UAPs and why these legal protections are critical for our national security?
Yes, Congressman, thank you. And I did invite Ryan Graves as my guest, as I'm on his advisory board for the Americans for Safe Aerospace, and the legislation that you supported and introduced, I fully support as well. And I think it's important that more civilian pilots, commercial pilots report so we can better understand and learn and do research on UAP, as well as remove the stigma so more citizens report on what they observe. And also, it'll only contribute to aviation safety when we have a better understanding of where these UAP are, how they operate, and at what frequency and what capability level. So it's important for aviation safety, and it'll be important for moving science and research forward.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to reiterate to my colleagues, I mean, this is a very bipartisan piece of legislation, and we just got to continue to get this through the Congress, and it's incredibly important that civilian pilots have the opportunity to safely report the UAPs that they are seeing or encountering in the air. And I can't express how critical this piece of what I believe is a larger collection of evidence and facts actually happened. We've been approached by pilots. I've talked to folks that have been engaged with our office and others, and there is still enormous stigma. And essentially, we don't have a system where folks are feeling free to be able to report what they're seeing. And so,
I can explain that, and I can fix that problem for you. I can give you the solution, but nobody wants to elect me for representative of California, which is good because I don't really want to work with Newsom. I don't want to be in the same state with him, let alone the same room. The stigma comes from the fact that government hasn't said a damn thing, just to be straightforward and say for a fact, these things are absolutely real. We have absolutely no idea what they are. And they just have to come out and all say it at once. That's all they have to do. And then the stigma goes away. That's it. People are seeing things. This is what they've been seeing. Here's a bunch of videos of it. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. That's how you make that stigma go away. And then people will report it. Because until then, you're risking being Randy Quaid from freaking, Independence Day, the crazy drunk crop duster guy who got abducted by aliens that nobody believed and they made fun of him until he had to come save the day when the aliens showed up, When you relieve the stigma from the people by admitting it's real, that's how it goes away, and the people will come out and talk about it more openly. We can have these conversations. That's one of the reasons these hearings are important, because now we can come out and just say, yeah, they're freaking aliens. We don't know aliens from where. We just know there's aliens. They're not all aliens. A lot of them are aliens. Some of them are private craft. Some of them are government craft. Just say it. Just say it. You're not going to hurt national security by just admitting that there's freaking aliens. That's it. Just freaking come out and say it. That's all we have to do. Say we know there's aliens. Say yes or no. We have or we have not made contact with them directly. Just come out and say that, dude. Just come out and say that directly. The only reason you wouldn't say that you have or haven't made contact is if you have made contact and you're concerned that your enemies either have or haven't made contact with a different group of aliens. It's a political issue at that point. It's a warfare issue at that point. It's a control issue at that point. That's where we're at. That's how you fix the problem, Rob. That's how you fix it, buddy. I'm just saying. Your problem is solved. I just solved your problem. Just implement it. And then there we go.
I just want to reiterate that advocacy. Mr. Gold, in your testimony, you discuss NASA's aviation safety reporting system, a confidential, non-punitive reporting mechanism. In the Safe Airspace for Americans Act, we explicitly allow for civilian reporting, of course, of UAPs. Can you explain why the NASA task force recommended the use of the aviation safety reporting system?
The aviation safety reporting system.
Okay, in chat, Kevin, Biden already told us there's aliens. Yeah, but it's Biden. He also said that his sister was his wife and tried to bite his wife's finger, bro. I don't know what to tell you. The government needs to come out as a whole and say it, is what I'm saying. Having one politician say it is not enough. Now, I will say this committee is taking this more seriously than I've ever seen a congressional hearing on this kind of thing. This is actually being treated as absolutely serious, and they're not making fun of it. They're not poking jokes at it. They're taking it incredibly seriously, asking questions that would normally make you look like a nutcase. And now they're trying to break that stigma because they want this bill to pass, this legislation to pass. If you want a way for civilians to report it, we have a Space Force now, right? Do you want to go straight to the military? No. So what do? Form a government agency that deals with that separately? NASA's not as trustworthy for that. What are you going to use NASA for? NASA is super outdated. They are unpopular. They're popular to wear the brand around and to look like you're an astronaut. Joe Rogan likes to wear his NASA shirt. My kid likes to wear his NASA shirt. But they haven't done anything super substantial that the American people have cared about since the alleged moon landing. There's nothing huge that NASA has done to be super popular after Challenger exploded. That's just a fact. What else have they come up with? We got the rover on Mars, but that does what? I mean, that's a machine, an individual machine on a very large rock, way up in the air, super far away from us, up in the space, in the deep space. Until they're sending people up there or actively trying to, and besides these things, maybe make NASA that department reporting for agency that interlinks between Space Force, the government, civilians, and civilian contractors, like SpaceX. Use SpaceX and private companies to go into space and to manufacture the tools and the implements to manufacture the eventual spacecraft for the Space Force. I know this sounds weird saying it now. Saying it sounds weird, but now, in this day and age, you can say that. And obviously not be looked at too crazy. Have them implement it because Private industry does better than government building. We know this. Government grade military issue is not the greatest thing. It's not the government that makes these aircraft. It is private companies, and then the government fixes and fits it with different devices it needs, usually made through something like DARPA, which is still mostly private done. NASA's just scientists that get paid to look at the sky and make entertaining. Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and that's fine, and we need that. But do we have more government bloat? Do we want more government involved, more bureaucratic nonsense? Because that's going to cause more problems. So what you need to do is have a department, one department that just takes reports all day long, sits and just takes reports, files incident reports from civilians and military, compiles them as a list for public access, and then some of them are deemed highly classified as military directly. It's not super hard to figure out when bureaucracy is not super involved, when there's not so much red tape. And that will get rid of your stigma, and that will give people an easy way to do it. Hell, you just hired way too many people for the IRS. The ATF is super bloated. Get rid of 90% of the ATF, and you can have an organization for this without costing the government, the taxpayers, any more money. It's super simple.
Is an existing system
I know it's
that is
not, but-
trusted, that has taken hundreds of thousands, now millions of cases. And again, recognizing budgetary constraints, this seemed like the perfect way to be able to gain more data. And when it comes to the stigma, sir, it's something that pilots are used to reporting on, that crew is used to reporting on.
Now, to clarify, I'm all for taking the funding from the ATF and giving it to NASA. 100%.
And so it's a great way to get data, to overcome the stigma without spending really that much more additional money since the system exists. Thank you so much.
So he's saying what I was saying, just in a different
Ryan
way.
Graves does. This is a common sense means to expose the truth of UAP for the purpose of this hearing.
Thank you. And I just want to also add, now, earlier this year, as part of the House Defense Authorization Bill, the NDAA, I had filed an amendment to include the UAP Disclosure Act, which would create a UAP Record Review Board and exercise with exercise of eminent domain over UAP-related material, modeled actually on the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, which is widely known. Now, the amendment was blocked. Thankfully, the Senate included the amendment by Senator Rounds and Schumer for the UAP Disclosure Act. So I just again want to say that we should be pushing and ensuring the UAP Disclosure Act, which is bipartisan in its support, should move forward. And if I can just briefly, particularly Admiral, can you just briefly, as I close my time, explain why the UAP Disclosure Act would be critical for us and our national security?
So before he gets to that, I do want to say the one thing I ever agreed with Chuck Schumer on is this. He's really into UFOs and aliens and wants the truth out there. He seems to be really invested in it. He has dumped tons of money into it. He's invested in organizations that do this. So I will give credit where it's due, Schumer. Good job on that one. And so this is an important question, though.
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, I believe the UAP Disclosure Act is important for national security, as well as advancing potential socioeconomic benefits resulting from UAP research, as well as public safety, as we referred to previously regarding aviation. And this act will allow for greater transparency and open research, and that's why I'm also a member of the UAP Disclosure Fund as an advisor, as in the Sol Foundation, as an advisor, senior strategic advisor, which is advocating for the same.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
All right, thank you. I'd like to recognize Mr. Biggs for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for holding this committee. Thank you to the witnesses. Admiral, the video that is called the Go Fast video, the email that you've talked about being deleted, I just want to briefly cover this. You said that the email, the author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of the classified technology demonstrations that it could explain the objects that were observed. And then you said the email disappears. Then you guys have a series of meetings. The commander of fleet forces and his operations officer never discussed the incident again. Is that right? Is that accurate?
That's accurate, sir.
Crazy.
And even during weekly meetings, it was never discussed again. My question for you is, you were in those meetings. Did you personally hear that nothing was going on about that?
Yes, sir. I was in those meetings, and
did you make inquiries about that?
No, I did not, sir, because I inferred, since I had been read into other special access programs, that this UAP video was part of one that I was not read into, or any of the recipients or the author of the email, and that an intelligence agency basically pulled it back and instructed the author of the email, hey, this is, you just conducted what they call spillage into a lower classification level. And when that's done, the procedures are basically to remove any of the communication.
You're going to silo it. So, and you, Mr. Elizondo,
It makes sense.
you said in your report and your testimony today, government work on the UAP subject still remains classified. Excessive secrecies led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. Fair?
Yes, sir.
All right, and all of you, and Mr. Schellenberger, by the way, I've read several of your books, Mr. Schellenberger, excellent stuff. What I would say too is, you were asked about the veracity of the author of this report. You comfortable with veracity?
Yes.
Okay, and then, and I'll get to you in a second, Mr. Gold. We'll talk about Kuhnian and Lakatoshian scientific advancement and how we're obviating that through these processes. But we'll get to that in a sec. Because what I want to really get to is the ultimate question it really becomes this. For what purpose is the federal government overclassifying, because that's what they're doing, they're overclassifying, and forbidding the public for getting access to this? And if you know, if you have an explanation, I'm curious, because I know what I've been told. I just want to know from your perspective, why do they overclassify? Mr. Elizondo, you look like you're finger on the button, ready to go.
Yes, sir. Forgive me. I think there's several reasons. I think at the time when this reality became evident to the U.S. government, we were in the middle of the Cold War with then Soviet Union, and we did not want to tip our hands to what our knowledge base was on this topic. We did not want to broadcast that to
the Cold War's long over.
It is, sir. It is, sir.
Well,
there's also then the philosophical
kind of
argument that the Department of Defense and the intelligence community is solution oriented, and when you don't have answers, it's a really tough spot to be in.
It's easier to be quiet and suppressed than if you don't have the answer.
Indeed, sir. In fact, there's a very real example when we built the U-2 spy plane and flew it over then Russia, and we're taking reconnaissance. And when we first started flying the aircraft, it flew so high and so fast we thought they weren't tracking us. In reality, they were tracking every flight. It wasn't until the Russians could develop the SA-2 surface-to-air missile and successfully shoot
and I would suggest to you also, along with Lakatos and Kuhn, you also have a problem with Kenneth Arrow's path dependence or increasing returns. That's one reason why they won't disclose it. It's too painful to admit. But I just want to read a couple things from Mr. Schellenberger's what he gave to us today, because I think this is interesting stuff, and I just want to convey this to you. On USG networks, there exists infrared footage of and imagery of a grouping of vessels engaged in SIGINT and mass collection at night in a specific area of the Pacific Ocean. This footage, which was in close proximity to the vessels, a large equilateral triangle UAP suddenly appears directly over the ships. These three bright points are seen at each bottom corner of the UAP, which is observed to slowly rotate on its horizontal axis. And he goes on to describe that.
That's what I saw
I
almost.
just want to read one more.
Sounds very similar to what I saw.
Because
Holy crap.
I think it's interesting. This stuff is interesting as anything. So let's get this one here, right here. While performing a routine airspace surveillance and control mission in the Eastern Air Defense Sector, an F-22 fighter observed multiple UAP contacts at mission altitude. Moving to intercept, the F-22 pilot noted multiple metallic orbs slightly smaller than a sedan hovering in place. Upon vectoring towards the UAPs, a smaller formation of the metallic orbs accelerated at rapid speed towards the F-22, which was unable to establish radar locks on the presumed hostile UAPs. The F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs. And then I'll leave that there, but because I just have no more time left. Well, she's not looking. So let's just get into let's get into part of this.
I thought I would be saved by the bell.
No. Let's talk about Kuhnian, Lakatoshian type of scientific development, and the problem that we have here is you have institutional blockage of what would be normal development of scientific ideas. And if you want to expand that, Mr. Gould.
We're over time, so be very fast, please.
I'll just say I'm a recovering attorney, so please take it easy on the science. But all breakthroughs have been heretical at first, and that's the challenge that we face, particularly with something as extraordinary as this, which is why gathering the data is so important. And I'll just end by saying, by the way, the overclassification of material is in no way limited to UAP. That is occurring throughout the government, as well as the inability to get people classifications in a timely and efficient manner, and then to have those classifications be broad enough to be useful. So this is a larger issue that I hope that Congress will look at.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. I've been generous. All right, Mr. Burleson, I'll recognize you for 5 minutes of questions, please.
Now, you won't normally see this kind of generosity in a meeting, especially a bipartisan meeting. But these guys are actually bipartisan, so that's a breath of fresh air. Guys on YouTube, thanks for sticking with this video. We'll catch you on the next one. I'm Jay, and we'll get on where we left off on the next video.